if you just made all the best decisions that you could make today, you have literally lived to the maximum of your potential today.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, you got to do it tomorrow, and then the next day, and the next day.
All right, what's up, guys? Today on the podcast, we have a treat for you. Special guest, Mr. Ryan Pineda himself.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, man.
So if you've been on the rock and you have been following along this dude, he's been on blowing up on social media, a real estate investor, you've got an education program, you've got a ton of stuff going on. And so maybe just like, how would you identify yourself?
I think I'm an entrepreneur first and foremost, but I think as we were talking about on the coaching call today, like, you know, real estate's always going to be at the heart of what I've done and what I'll continue to do. And, you know, I love real estate, but I also love just hustling and, you know, finding new ways to make money and do things.
You know, one of the things I think that really attracted me to you as a coach, because now we hire you for some coaching, is that you have like a lot of balance in your life. So there's a lot of guys I think I look up to, like in the business world, like let's say Elon Musk. Like I look up to that guy, he's like crushing it. But then I wouldn't want to trade places with him just because he doesn't have like the same balance that you have. And so I know one of the big things for you is like you don't work past 5 p.m. And you don't work on weekends, and you really make faith and family a priority. Yet somehow you're able to continue to grow and build out and expand like at a crazy rate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's why I wrote The Wealthy Way, and just to talk about it. You know, it's funny because I put it in the entrepreneurship category, and even like my podcast, Wealthy Way, is in the entrepreneurship category. But the more I like think about it, the more it's really just about personal development or productivity just overall, because the only way you're going to be able to achieve it all is literally just becoming really efficient in whatever time you're spending at whatever task.
So, I mean, like, I think, like, how did you go from basically, like, zero real estate experience to where you are now? And, like, how did you get here so fast but not working, like, crazy hours like that most people do?
Well, I think I was forced into it. So, you know, I was a pro baseball player for 8 years, and I wasn't making any money, but I was also, like, wanting to do that and try and make it. And so I had no choice. It was like, how do I make money in the least amount of time as possible? Because this other stuff's more important to me, and this is taking up all my time. And so I just found ways to make money in like short periods of time. So like whether it was flipping couches, which was my first successful endeavor, or then, you know, learning how to flip houses. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't take that much time to go flip a house, and I can go make a big reward. And so I've just kind of always thought about it in that way of like, how do I essentially just increase my dollar per hour?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely see the progression. I think in the beginning you were flipping couches. You always kind of seemed like had that entrepreneur mindset of like how to like hustle and kind of make things happen.
Yeah.
But then I think over the years we kind of seen you kind of progress as opposed to just being a hustler. Now you have like a big company, you have employees, and there's a lot more leadership, a lot of the more things where you've kind of progressed through the ranks as far as just like your entrepreneurship, but also like your business acumen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I remember going to some like big business events and masterminds, and they were talking about all the things of like being a business owner, right? KPIs and holding people accountable and all these things. And I'm like, I don't need any of that crap, dude. Like, I'm killing it, just winging it.
Yeah.
And that'll get you, you know, however far it'll get you. And then you realize like it doesn't work long term. You know, it leads to chaos. It leads to not knowing where money's at or where it's going.
Because when you first started, you were flipping couches, it was just you by yourself, right?
Yep.
And then when you're flipping houses, it was just you by yourself as well too.
Yep.
At what point did it require you to build a team or to like do like KPIs and these other kinds of things?
Well, I mean, like I flipped my first 80 homes almost by myself.
Okay.
You know, I had one other guy helping me, you know, at some point along the way. And then when I retired from baseball, that was when I built like my first real team. This is in 2018. So I was like, I guess I'll get an office. I guess I'll hire some people.
So you flipped the first 80 houses just by yourself, and then like that. I mean, like to me, like just by myself. I mean, it seems kind of like it seems like a lot like that just for one person, you know. I mean,
well, and also I was playing baseball too. So like the only reason, well, I don't want to say the only reason, but I soon realized that me going to check the properties and stuff didn't make money. So I hired a project manager, and that was my first hire.
Okay.
And that was basically it. I sourced every other deal. I negotiated them all. I raised the capital. And I still played baseball. So like,
and so how many hours a week? I mean, when you're flipping these 80 houses, how much time was devoted to baseball and how much time was devoted to, like, let's say, the flipping houses?
Far more in baseball.
Because I mean, that's your passion, right? Like, that's like your livelihood. So it's
Bro,
almost
if I could go play golf or baseball or something, I wouldn't be here because I still love sports. I love business now too. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I've been raised an athlete my whole life. I love sports, and yeah, I mean, like the 80 houses came over a 3-year span, and so yeah, I mean, half the year I was literally in another state.
Yeah.
So okay, half is already gone. But during that time, in my downtime, and this is where like a lot of my baseball friends, they'll attest to this now. But during the downtime, because we have so much downtime in baseball, like we're just sitting around doing nothing, waiting for the game to start, on bus rides, all this stuff. I said, you know what? I'm going to make the most of my time during those times. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to make offers. I'm going to, try and find my next deal, post in Facebook groups.
There's so much to learn, right? Especially when you just start out in real estate. I mean, there's like the how to do real estate. There's like the actual flipping. There's like the funding. There's a whole bunch of things that it can kind of seem overwhelming. So the fact that you're doing kind of full time into baseball, but then you're also learning and flipping houses at the same time on the side. To me, like, it just seems like, how did you manage that, and what's like going through your head as you're going through this process?
As time went on, I started to see that real estate was going to become, my future. As baseball started to become more of my past.
Got it.
So I started to put more emphasis on one versus the other. But man, I would just say it comes with, like, any skill I've ever tried to learn, I've just committed to going all into that skill and not worrying about anything else.
So, okay, so you're flipping 80 houses, and then eventually, like, it seems like real estate is kind of going to be more towards your future. What was the next step after the house flipping business?
Well, yeah, I ended up going all in on real estate for a few years, and then COVID hit, and I'm sitting there with 50 house flips, not knowing what's going to happen. And so I get into social media because I literally had nothing else to do, because the title companies are closed. They're saying the market's going to crash. There's so much uncertainty. And I just had this idea. I'm like, man, everyone is sitting at home right now watching YouTube, watching TikTok, all this stuff. And then I started to realize what these guys were making.
The social media influencers.
Yeah, I'm like, these guys don't even flip houses and they're making more money than me. This is crazy. And I used to be a hater of those people because I was a guy who was doing more.
Yeah.
But then you just realize, like, I'm the dummy. They're the smart ones. They have way less risk. They sit in front of a camera and talk. And I'm over here with 50 flips, like, that could go under tomorrow.
I think that's a really interesting point you make. I think a lot of times when you see the guys who quote unquote don't deserve something because you feel like you're doing more work or you've done more, like, to kind of like
it's
sacrifice
entitlement.
or earn to it. But then at the same time, when you look at these guys who are successful, why not emulate or do the same thing that they're doing if it's so, like, easy, right?
Yeah, and I think you see that a lot. People project their feelings onto you, whether you realize it or not, right? So if somebody's always negative, it's because they themselves have a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I see these guys who hate on social media influencers, they're like, this guy, it's because you wish you were that.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you're doing that, whether you know it or not. Yeah. It's just a lack of self-awareness.
No, that's a good point too. I mean, whenever you get something where, like, it's and you see people who criticize others, right? And I think other guys made this point was you're never criticizing the guys below you. It's always criticizing somebody ahead of you because
you want to be there.
If it's jealousy or like you wish you had the same thing that they had.
Exactly. And you're just like, because you yourself are thinking, how do I get there? And you probably have tried to get there and you haven't figured it out. And therefore you have two options. Either you believe that they did something that was not right. And like they cheated their way to get there, or you just believe that, you're probably not going to believe that it's you. You're not good enough. And maybe some people might think that. But if you're successful, odds are, if you're not at a certain place, you're going to just make an excuse and say, oh, they must have cheated. Or like, oh, dude, I would never want that. I see people say this all the time. They're like, oh, I would never want to be a billionaire because, man, they got to work so much. I'm like, I don't know. Like, Richard Branson don't look like he's working like crazy. He's got like 500 companies he's running. He seems to be doing fine.
No, I mean that's so true. And so, I mean, like, so as you're going through, like, kind of like the social media phase and like you're kind of growing and building this thing out, like, what did that process look like from basically zero social media, knowledge to how you are as far as like your success?
I think it's just like we were talking about earlier, where it's like, okay, if I want to be a great baseball player, what do? I dedicate all my time and energy to becoming great and learning and practicing and everything else. Okay, I want to get into real estate. Okay, I need to learn all the basics. I need to practice. I need to get out and network. I got to get out and make offers. I got to just do it. And social media was no different. It was like, okay, these are the best people. Let me study them. What do they do? Do they have their own courses?
Watching like YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, YouTube, TikTok. So you're basically looking at the guys that are really successful and trying to like analyze what they're doing well, analyze what they're doing wrong, and just kind of seeing how you can fit that into like your system.
Yeah, and I literally bought courses and mentorship and other things because I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'll just do it the right way.
What kind of social media courses did you buy?
Well, dude, I mean, like at that time, the guys I was looking at, Graham Steffen, who's a buddy of mine now, he had a course. Meet Kevin, buddy of mine now, he had a course.
Okay.
And I'm like, dang, these guys have like they're literally who I'm trying to emulate. Let me go watch their courses. And they were both saying the same things. And I was like, oh, there's a process to this. It's just like everything else I've ever done. If you do these steps, you will be successful. Yeah. Versus I used to kind of just think it was a crapshoot.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting that you say that because actually I bought your course for the social media thing.
Yeah.
And then I followed that to kind of like get to where I am today. At the beginning.
There's a process.
But it's just consistently doing what the course says. And even when I started in real estate, I think I bought a book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing, and I basically just did exactly what the book said to do, and then it just works.
It's crazy, man. I mean, I tell people, but just like go emulate who you want to be like. And
at least
it's not hard.
At least in the foundational things, right? So like buying a course and kind of getting started will get you to like a certain level. But after you hit that level, like now you want to get past that level. What does it take to kind of get past what the courses are teaching, you know?
I think at that point, and look, here's the thing, right? Unfortunately, a course or a book usually isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Because you and I can go take a course or a book because we're high performers and like we can go implement. But 99% of people, even if they watch a YouTube or a course, they're not doing anything.
Why is that? Can you explain that?
Because doing things at a high level is really hard. Like I think there's so many factors that go into success. It's like you got to know what to do.
Yeah.
You got to believe in it. You got to put in the work. You got to be able to self-adjust when it's not working properly.
I think that's the big thing is like with you have experience or you're able to figure things out, you're kind of filling in some of the holes along the way. So like a lot of times the course or like these like the coaches will kind of give you like A to Z, but there's still like little chinks that you kind of have to still fill in with either your own experience or with like a nugget from like another friend or a peer or something, right? So
yeah, and that's why I think like 99% will still just do nothing with it, even if they have all the information. So like, you asked like, what's the next level? The next level is implementation. So information is just the first step. Implementing is the second step. And so it's like, man, how do I implement this? And I always just use the analogy of like a personal trainer. And it's like, okay, if you wanted to go get jacked, I could give you a book on all the nutrition, all the workouts, and like, good luck, go do it. 99% of people won't get jacked, right? But the second stage is, okay, I'm going to give you a plan that's custom to Daniel. Okay, Daniel, you want to put on 10 pounds of muscle. This is your height. This is your weight. Okay. We're going to do these exercises for you. And I'm going to give you like this custom plan. Hey, report back to me every week with your numbers and, your daily macros. So like I'm checking all this stuff.
It's really tailored to that person, like, and like specifically.
Yeah. And so like that would be maybe the second level. The third level would be, oh no, bro. I'm literally going to be with you at the gym, making sure you hit every rep the way we want. We're going to order all the meal prep to your house, so there's no shenanigans, and you're going to eat all this food. Like that would be the extreme level of coaching and accountability.
So I mean, it would be ideal if you could always just pay for like that third extreme level, but
a lot of people don't want it.
I mean, that's true too.
Yeah, I don't want it.
But I mean, at the same time too, there's also I feel like certain things in life where you can pay for the coaching at that level, but there's a lot of things where you can't. So so it's just, to get to where you are today, I think there's a lot of levels where if you could just pay somebody to do that for you, it's like pressing the easy button. But if you can't pay for it, then like now you have to kind of figure it out on your own. You have to either hold yourself accountable or find a way to overcome those plateaus that will naturally come from just the information or just from like the first level of coaching.
Well, I think too, when you get to a plateau, that's when you realize the need for coaching again, because whatever information and implementation got you to this level, it no longer works at this level. So now you have to reinvent yourself and, kind of like seek out new answers.
I think that's really going to be helpful for us because like we're pretty successful, and then we hit a plateau. But just having some of your insights, where you're like a little bit ahead of us, to kind of navigate and kind of take it to the next level. And I think every time you hit like a plateau, like you mentioned earlier, was that you can either just stay at that plateau for like a long time, or you're gonna have to like innovate, maybe take a small drop, and then kind of go to like the next level of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's hard, man, because when most people hit a plateau, they do one of two things. One, they're just like, oh, I mean, I guess that's just how it is. Or two, they just keep trying to throw stuff at the wall and it's not working, and they just become frustrated and whatever.
I think, so that's one of the challenges, I think, as a real estate investor, as an entrepreneur, is that we're on this constant journey of just trying to get better and trying to like figure out new things. And there's so many times when you get stuck and you're like not sure what to do. And so I think going to things like WealthCon or joining masterminds or other kinds of things, or getting coaching, is really helpful for us to kind of like break through those kind of like little small things where we get stuck within ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Neil Patel at WealthCon, and Neil's, if not a billionaire, really close to it. He's only 38. And basically, I was like, Neil, who mentors you at this point? Like, you're like, how do you learn and get better? Because clearly you are. He's like always learning. Yeah. He's like, honestly, the way I learn is from my peers now, my friends. And he's like, honestly, if I have a real estate question, I'll call you. And he's right. Like, he literally, I remember like a year ago, I got a call out of the blue. I'm like, why is Neil Patel calling me? He's like, hey, dude, I got a situation. I'm selling my house, and this guy wants me to do like all these repairs. Do I have to do it? And I was like, well, I mean, do you think he's going to back out of the deal if you don't? And he's like, no, he's not backing out of the deal. His wife will kill him. Like, he has to buy the home. And I was like, well, then you probably don't need to do it. Just tell him no. And the worst that can happen is he says no and then he backs out. But like, if you don't think that's even a possibility, then just tell him no. His hands are tied. He goes, okay, cool. Well, also there's another factor to this. The buyer's Mark Wahlberg. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, do you care if like you piss him off? And he's like, no. I was like, all right, well, then just tell him no. And then sure enough, he told him no, and he bought the house. And it's true. He's like, yeah, like if I have a real estate question, I would just call you. You know more about real estate than me, even though he's a billionaire. And it's like, it's true. Like, I just have so many friends now. It's like, if I want to learn something about digital marketing, I will talk to Neil. If I want to learn something about funnels, I'll talk to Russell Brunson. If I want to learn something about fitness, I got a million fitness guys.
I mean, it's amazing that you can actually pull names like this just because you're at a certain level, right? But let's say you're just starting out, and like, let's say you're at the lower levels, and like, so maybe when you were first starting, did you have peers or did you have people who you could talk to like in the current state of your business?
Well, but I mean, here's the thing. I am not at their level. Like, those guys, and I'm not a billionaire. I'm not even close. Russell Brunson, I don't know what he's worth. He's worth hundreds of millions. ClickFunnels is worth a lot. And I'm able to go talk to, I'm not near Grant Cardone's level, yet I can go talk to him. So I don't think you have to have only peers, because they're not my peers. Yeah. Maybe we're peers in the sense of social media, but not financially or business-wise.
Why do you think like they want to talk to you? What do you think it is about it? Because you're not paying them for the time, right? So,
I don't know. Dan Martell asked me. There's another guy, Dan Martell. He's at WealthCon too, and he sold 3 9-figure companies. And he literally asked that on my podcast. He's like, "Why do you think they all want to talk to you and like do these things for you?" He's like, "I spoke at WealthCon for free for you." Like, I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. Why do you want to be friends? And he's just like, honestly, I think guys above you want to buy stock in you because they can see, where you're going and where your heart is and your character and what you're doing, and they want to be a part of it. And what I've realized too is that when you do and this goes back to the wealthy way, money is just one aspect of it. Yeah. Right. So yes, these guys are way ahead financially.
The thing too, though, but I mean, so when money is just one aspect of it, but it's like the most easily like measurable thing. So
yes.
Like you can't measure your character, you can't measure your faith, you can't really measure a whole lot of other things you do, but you can kind of see someone's like monetary trajectory, and so like, that's like the easiest thing for us to latch on as far as like to give people like value or like
that you could measure somebody's health and how jacked they are. Yeah. But I think that. Yes, money is one aspect of it, but it's like if we were to compare the totality of, let's just say what I bring to the table versus what somebody else brings to the table, and I guess I would try to say this as least arrogant or cocky as possible, but it's like I think I could go toe-to-toe with anyone just based on, okay, yeah, you're making more money than me, but like bro. Like my
Like
family's
whole life balance, you
good.
mean,
My
so.
faith is good. My health's great. You know, I have lots of cool things we do lifestyle wise. Like back to okay. Basically, what it comes down to is what you said earlier. Would you trade places with that person?
Yeah,
Right?
I mean,
That's
yeah.
the measuring stick.
Yeah,
if you would trade places with that person, you know, you don't have to say like permanently trade, but you're like, dude, like actually, like I really like what they're the life they live. Then that's somebody I want to connect with, it's regardless of how much money they got.
I mean that's so true. But I think another thing that you brought up is that people are trying to buy stock in you because they see your direction. And so I think there's like, we had an interview with another young kid. He's like 20 years old. He's doing like 50 flips a year. But the thing is, I can see the direction that his life is headed. So,
Heck yeah.
In your case, because you had such a meteoric rise in the last few years, people can also see like the direction that you're headed. And so the question for you is, how did you have such a meteoric rise, and how are you continuing to continue to grow that vision so large every single year or every single month?
That's a good question. Well, I would say the meteoric rise is not necessarily meteoric. I think it's always just like a culmination of daily stuff you did, right? Because it's like, I mean, my rise happened after I've been flipping houses and investing in real estate for 7-8 years.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, it's meteoric compared to, like, let's say, like, the average investor. Because the average investor, let's say,
but the average investor didn't do what I did every day.
And what is doing that every day?
I mean, okay, for me, how many people maxed out their credit cards to go flip their first house and bet it all? How many people figured out how to go do 20, 80 deals while also playing pro baseball? Like how many people, were able to go create social media content and build the, like, you know.
So, I mean, that's the whole point is like, you have been able to do all these things, right? And so what is it? Are you just like maximizing your time? Because the crazy thing is like, if you're doing this, but you're working like 20 hours a day, okay, like that helps to make more
but
sense.
I'm not.
But like you're only working 9 to 5, but you're able to and you're like, how else is it able to like create that amount of success in such a short period of time?
Well, I think it goes back to the 4 levers. Naval Ravikant talks about this, and I didn't even know this when I was doing it, or even today, I don't really think about it. It just comes natural. But like, there's basically 4 levers to get, I get leverage, right? So one is basically humans. So like, are you good at just hiring, labor and all that? And I would say I'm actually really good at that. I think I've always been good at that, just getting other people to do stuff for me, right? And figuring out a win-win where it makes sense for you to do stuff for me, right? The second would be capital. Okay, how good are you at raising money? I was always pretty good at raising money and figuring out how to get people to fund my deals and everything else, right? Because think about it, right? Even with just those 2 alone, in real estate, if you can't get enough labor, you're not going to find deals. You're not going to get them fixed up, whatever. So
I mean, that applies not just employees, but that's like finding vendors or agents who want to work with you.
100%. I could find anybody, right? Every person in this company, I found them. I found every vendor. I found every supplier. I'm just good at finding people. But like the second one with capital, right? If you find all these deals, but you have no money to buy them, that's another thing. The third is media. Like I just intuitively understood that media amplifies everything. That's why I don't speak at like other people's events. I'm like, dude, I'll just freaking make this video right now. It's going to reach more people. Why am I going to go fly and spend 2 days going to this event to go speak for 30 minutes and then fly back? What's the point? I can go reach all these people right now.
One thing that I feel like I noticed about you is that you're really good at prioritizing the things that can give you the highest return.
Yeah.
So I think like if you
leverage.
But the thing is, like, you have to prioritize, like, what it is. Because for me, I'd be like, okay, well, I think going to this event will give me, like, leverage because I'll get, like, new faces or new relationships. And so...
And you will.
Yeah, but I'll spend that time flying there, but I won't make the video or, like, I'll prioritize that over something else. And so...
Well, you need to go to WealthCon. But... so, like, let me finish. So, like, leverage-wise, media is a huge lever. Okay. And then the fourth is tech. And so I've always embraced new tech. I'm like, okay, what are some new technologies that are happening here? And you're like, okay, there's CRM technologies, there's different social media platforms that are emerging, there's AI, there's all these different technical things. So I'm always willing to test. But I would say for you and for me, right, every decision has a cost. And so since WealthCon's right here, let's just say like, okay, you're deciding, even for me, I'm deciding whether or not I want to throw another WealthCon. Like literally, even though I've been doing it, that does not mean I have to do it next quarter just because I've done it for the last 4 years. It may no longer be the best thing for me to do.
So you're always evaluating like your current opportunities and your current
1,000%. Nothing is set in stone.
I think that's something I learned from you too, is just like spending time evaluating opportunities, because I think before when I was just going into like go mode, just like you're just doing whatever's in front of you. But then there's so much times when it's so inefficient because like just doing what's in front of you.
Because you're used to it. You've just done it forever, right? So it's like, okay, because WealthCon's a great example of this, okay? We built a brand. People expect it every quarter. And if I were to shut it down, right, people would talk crap and say whatever would happen would happen. I don't really care. Like, honestly, I mean, I would just be like, whatever. It's not the best thing for me anymore. I don't really care. But that's not the case. So if I'm evaluating WealthCon, once again, I'm looking at it from different perspectives. I'm saying, okay, yes, the financial return, what is that, right? To be honest, the financial return's like not anything crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's actually not a good decision for me.
Just the WealthCon the event in of itself.
No, it's profitable, but I could do far more profitable things.
With your same time and energy.
Correct. So. It takes a lot of time and energy to do this. The sales team's focus. What if we didn't have to do this and we could sell other stuff and, whatever, right? So financially, it still makes money. It's not like it's a loser, but it's not by any means this massive financial thing. Okay, so why else would I do it? Well, the second would be, okay, let's just talk long-term brand value. It definitely brings long-term brand value. It brings community together. It brings affinity and all these things, because it's like people are just getting such a great experience, word of mouth.
I mean, personally, I have like a huge, get a huge value out of it. And I think all the peers who I talk to at WealthCon have been like so blessed by it. I think it does things like the speakers are amazing. You learn things on the stage, but then just in the rooms and the outside, like deals are done. You raise money. You find like partners. There's so much things that happen because of this. That the thing that you create is having a ripple effect in like a lot of people's lives beyond just like what's helping like yourself too.
100%, right? And so, from a brand standpoint and a long-term goodwill standpoint, it's 10 out of 10. You can't even really measure what it's doing and how that will affect it 10 years from now, right? I think like when Tony Robbins, he started, and I've never been to it, but like many people have told me since I'm in the event space, but like, dude, he's been doing the same UWP thing for like 40 years.
What's the UWP? I mean,
like Unleash the Power Within, right? Okay. He's been doing the same one for like 40 years. And it's like, dang, dude. Like he does like 4 a year for 40 years straight. And it's like, for him, I mean, obviously financially, I'm pretty sure it does great. But the long-term brand value that event has brought him because of so many lives changed, it's incredible. That's why he is who he is. But like the third reason would be what we're talking about here, which is just the, personal fulfillment side of it. And it's like, man, dude, to your point, when I talk to all the attendees and I hear the life change and the marriages and the relationships and people coming to faith and giving their life to Christ, and I just think about the ministry perspective of it. And I'm like, dude, regardless of what happens on the financial side, this side is so massive that it doesn't even matter. Yeah. Even if it lost money, this side would still outweigh everything because it's so massive. And, the Bible talks about storing up treasures in heaven. And it's like, man, all of your good deeds and all the things you're doing for the kingdom on earth, there's going to be a reward for it in heaven, and I don't know what that looks like or how it's going to play out, but something's happening over there. Yeah. And it's worth it today and for eternity.
Yeah, that's another good point you kind of bring it apart, is where a lot of decisions are not just financial decisions. There's also the things where how it impacts like your community and like the people around you. But also I feel like WealthCon also brings a lot of like goodwill and good, like it's like this karma that comes to you because people are so impacted in such a positive way. Now they're like indebted to you, right? So I think whenever you're in like business, I always like to have like a partnership where I feel like people are indebted to me. Because I think for all of our partnerships, like we always overvalue or we over deliver, and like we go above and beyond, I think. And so like I like the feeling of people being indebted to me. There's this one partnership recently that we joined or we're part of where I feel like I'm getting more than I'm giving. So it feels like very like strange, because I'm like, okay, I feel like this guy is like giving me way more than like I'm giving him. And so like I feel indebted to him now. So like it just like, but I think just in general, like you do a really good job of providing value to a lot of people where we feel indebted to you because like the value, the overvalue you kind of given to us.
Well, I appreciate that. But I mean, dude, like you guys have paid a lot of money, you in particular. And it's like, when I was interviewing Dan Martell at WealthCon, he was saying that same thing Neil Patel was saying, like his mentors are his friends and peers and everyone else. And he was like, honestly, I love, because I was just telling a story about how, you know, I met Dan, I didn't know who he was, and then I was like blown away by how cool this guy is. And then I felt like an idiot. And then I was like, bro, you got to speak at WealthCon. And he's in, right? And then he spoke again. And, you know, I needed a call and whatever, right? But then I've also done things for him behind the scenes. And he was like, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. It's like a relationship and goodwill should always, you know, like I should want to just over deliver for you. And then in turn, though, I should also like take whatever you want to give me.
Yeah.
Because if it's always like, I'm just giving and you're receiving and nothing is ever being given back, it creates actually like a divide where it's like, dude, I just like you, if I'm only delivering to you and you're like, bro, like I want to do something for you. This doesn't feel good that you're only pouring into me and I'm not giving back. It doesn't feel good for anybody. And he was telling this story about how this guy, one of his mentors, like is that way. He's never asked him for anything. He's never like, but he's always just given Dan all this value. And Dan's like, dude, just let me give you like $200,000. Like, let me just do something because I don't feel good, even though you're helping me so much, because that's the normal response.
I mean, and that's so true. But also is also true where there's been like relationships or partnerships where I've given so much, and there's been absolutely nothing in return, and then so that kind of just dies because there's no reciprocal thing. And it's not like I expected anything in the beginning. It's just like I was trying to give. But you give, and then if there's nothing in return, it's kind of like...
Well, that's why it goes like back to both sides. Like, you got to just constantly have this game of just constantly giving to each other. And that's like, you know, why I said with Dan, I was like, you know, basically I was giving to him by letting him on my podcast because he had reached out like 3 times. I rejected all 3 times, which was so dumb in hindsight. But then he came on. And he's like, bro, thanks for having me on, dude. Like, I know you didn't know me and stuff, but hopefully, like, you know, people got that. I was like, oh, bro, you're a killer. Like, freaking, I want you to speak at WealthCon. He's like, done. And he was like, that actually is how it should be. Like, you did me a favor. Now I'm going to go do you a favor and come speak at WealthCon. And, you know, and even still, like, even like having him speak at WealthCon was still a favor to him in a way because he got in front of a big audience and he wasn't known yet the way he is today. So it's like, it was still mutually beneficial. Like, both were mutually beneficial. Him on my show was mutually beneficial. Him on WealthCon was mutually beneficial. Like, and that's the best win-win when it's mutually beneficial.
You know, as I grow as an investor, as an entrepreneur, I never really understood the power of how relationships work. And so, I mean, as a W-2 employee, like, honestly, like, relationships really don't matter. I mean, like, it makes your life better, right? You want to, like, enjoy your coworkers, you guys have a good time and stuff. You want to, like, have a good relationship with your boss, maybe so you can get, like, promoted, etc. But, like, it really doesn't drive things forward the same way it does as an entrepreneur, or as an investor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I was just talking about this on our All-Star call, but, like, it's getting back to the basics. And I was like, man, the way I did 80 deals, you know, very solo, was because it was purely relationship based. If I had to go direct to seller and I had to like call and source deals, I would have never been able to do it. But because I just said, you know what, I would rather just pay you assignment fees. I would rather let you relist my property. Like, let me just create win-wins. That was how I built it. And that was, I was like, man, I got to get back to the basics of just building relationships.
And I feel like the best guys at it are like whenever there's an exchange, like the other guys always feel like they win more. It's like, even for us, I feel like you provided way more value to me than I paid you money for it. I mean,
but you should. But like, in any time you're paying for something, it should be 10x the value, right? So it's like, dude, if you pay 100, I better make you $1 million. That's how I feel, or else it wasn't justified.
I mean, for me, I guess from my point of view, it's like, as long as you make me over 100,
it's a win.
101, like, at least I broke even kind of thing. But I mean, obviously, I think it's a lot more than that. But I'm just saying, like, it just, the best relationship guys I see is like they're able to provide value to other people, but then it doesn't cost them a whole lot too. Like, you know, so even for myself, when I, let's say, mentor like a younger investor, like, I'm not spending a whole lot of time with them, but then I give them some value where like for them it's like a lot more value than the time or the effort that it takes for me on my end.
Yeah. I mean, and this is where it comes back to giving value. So like the more relationships you build and the more value you add to people, the more they want to introduce you to more people.
Yeah.
And great example this morning. My friend Sean Cannell has an event called Growth Video Live this week. And, you know, he has Dave Ramsey coming to speak, and he paid Dave like a lot, multiple six figures. I was like, dude, you paid him how much? That's crazy. And, you know, sure enough, I was like, bro, if he's going to come to Vegas, I would love to interview him, even though you paid him all this money. Is there any way I can interview him? He's like, oh, yeah, done. And, you know, I was also with Patrick Lencioni up in California, and he brought up Dave too. And he's like, oh, Dave's my great buddy. I will introduce you to him. And, you know, sure enough, this morning I got a email from Sean and Dave's team. And, you know, Sean just basically hyped me up. He's like, Ryan is this guy, that guy, boom, boom, boom. Like, you know, he's in Vegas. Like, you know, if Dave's got time, you know, let's do it. And I don't know if it's going to happen, but because I have Sean's cosign and then I have Patrick Lencioni's cosign, the odds are very likely that something will happen, even if it's not this week, because his schedule might be crazy. Like, I don't know. But either way, I will meet him. It ain't going to cost me anything. I don't know when it's going to be, but because of enough cosigns, it will happen.
I mean, the same thing has happened to me, I think, in the Oslo program, where I've done a few guys like a favor, helping them out in some like problems they're having. Then they speak like a good word to me, and like they introduce me to somebody else, and then like that. And whenever you get like a warm introduction to other investors or other guys who are doing things on a high level, it's almost like they automatically want to help you because of like the good like word that they've already heard about you.
100%. And that's like even with Dan Martell. You know, I had a couple of people try to introduce me to him that I didn't necessarily like. It's not like I didn't respect them, but it's just like, whatever. And then one guy who I really respect was like, no, Ryan, you have to meet Dan. I was like, done. Just because, I respect them. And, it depends who the word's coming from. You know, I've had so many people ask me to introduce them to certain people, and I'll be like, no, just because it's just going to make me look bad.
Because you don't have, I mean, like they don't have the value, or they don't have like the...
Yeah. And versus like, I would hope anyone I meet is like, no, dude, I will introduce Ryan to this person because of who he is. So you got to make yourself more valuable.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
I mean, just thinking through this, like the game is really like the more valuable that you can become as a whatever it is that you're doing, the more opportunities that you're going to have like in the world in general.
I've broken it. It's very simple to me how you meet people. There's 3 ways to create value so that somebody, would do business with you. So number 1 is you pay them. Okay. That's the easiest path of least resistance. It's like, I think Grant Cardone, when he had Trump and Tom Brady on, it's like, he just paid him $1 million. And like, that's how they got on.
For us, I mean, our relationship with like, if I was just like a random dude, I think at the level that I'm at now, you wouldn't really have time for me because you're so busy, right? But
well, and like I just also too, you just don't know how serious somebody is, and even if they're successful, right? You don't know what somebody's intentions are, what they want from you, whatever, right? You're always become more guarded as you become more in demand. Right. So right, like you could just pay somebody. Okay. The second one is they have a skill that you have that they really want or they want to learn or something else. So like the reason Russell Brunson ended up here was because he actually wanted to learn what we were doing on the media side. He's like, I really just want to see how you run the podcast and what your team looks like and how you guys handle it and all that stuff. That was why he came. And I've had lots of just content creators who are like, dude, I want to invest in real estate. Can I hit you up? So that's how we met.
It's because you guys are doing it at such a high level, and like you're developing like this skill and this authority inside the space. So because of that, now it makes like you more valuable to these other guys who want to like basically pick your brain and see how you're able to do something.
100%, right? And if I can help them, great. Like events, right? If somebody wanted to learn to throw events, at this point, I've pretty much got it figured out, and so I could tell them from A to Z what they need to look out for with booking and venues and marketing and sales.
I think I've learned a lot from you actually, just in the coaching calls. And so you were telling me to throw in events for like a long period of time, and then I was like, I don't think like it's worth it. And then there's something clicked like one time where I just saw the value that the events are actually bringing. And so now we're all into events. And so
yeah, they're great. I tell everyone all the time, I'm like, they're the most underrated thing anyone can do. And you can just do them locally for no cost, and like it's easy. So yeah, you have a skill that people really would like to learn. Or 3, you have a platform. You have an audience. You have a stage. You have a podcast. And as your podcast gets bigger, more people will come on because it gets them exposure and everything else. And so like those would be like the 3 ways you could add value to somebody. But then I would add there's like a 4th factor, which would be basically the X factor. And that's really like your likability or relatability. And so for me, when I can meet a guy like Dave or Patrick, like, well, you know, yeah, cool. All right, this guy Ryan, he's got some influence and whatever. But what's going to be the X factor? Well, like the X factor of what like even Sean and Patrick are telling him is like, no, Ryan's actually a really solid Christian. And I know, Dave, like you want to invest into the next, you know, Christian guys, Christian, right? Because like Dave grew up in the church. That's how he built everything. And like, you know, they're telling him about what I'm doing with Wealthy Kingdom. So like there's the X factor of like, oh, okay, actually I do want to.
Like your things align as far as like your purpose or things bigger than yourself as well.
Exactly, right? Because like even for me, if somebody tells me that, something that's relatable or X factorized, like for example, I'll get a lot of broke minor leaguers who hit me up, but I have an affinity for those guys. Even if they don't pay me, or I'm like, all right, dude, I'm going to get you a ticket to WealthCon because I know how hard it is. Like, this is going to help you, man.
You have like a soft spot in your, just because like if you know what they're going through,
we relate.
I mean, the same thing for me is like if there's somebody who's like in my hometown or went to my high school or something that does the same thing that I do, like I just basically, I want to help you out. So to you from Hawaii, they automatically get like a free pass or something just because I want to see like them succeed.
Exactly.
Over like a random other person. So.
100%. And, you know, the same is true whether it's faith-based or like even now, for example, other guys, it doesn't have to be like even deeper, but you guys can bond over like hobbies and other things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, when I met Ed, we bonded over multiple things. One of which was obviously faith and just media, but golf too. It's like, bro, you're that good at golf. Like, okay, like we're going to play. And it's just like, you know, so I call that like the X factor, the likability factor, you know, and this is where I think, I don't know, for me, I have a lot of things that I like. I'm very like diverse, so I can relate to people in many different ways. It's like, oh, you want to relate about sports? Dude, I could go all day about sports. Oh, faith? I could go all day. Business? I can go all day in business. Oh, you want to talk about health? I know all about that. Oh, you want to talk about, you know, kids? I got 3 of these things, dude. Like, let's talk about it. So, you know, for me, I think I do a good job of relating to people just because I have so much life experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, because I definitely see that, like, as you're growing, as you're expanding, a big part of, like, your success, I think, is making great decisions. So I think you're very smart as when it comes down to, like, decision-making, but also prioritizing and using leverage, like, to the maximum. So, like, I think trying to see, like, why you gotten so far so fast and why everybody thinks that you're going to be going so far so fast or continue to the momentum that you've already had, you know?
I think, like, you hit the nail on the head. It's making the best decision day in and day out. Mm-hmm. That's literally it. Like, imagine there's not anything better you could do. Like, today, you, Daniel Kong, if you just made all the best decisions that you could make today, you have literally lived to the maximum of your potential today.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You got to do it tomorrow. And then the next day and the next day. And so the problem is if you're making, I don't know, a 50% capacity decision.
Good decision, bad decision kind of thing.
Good decision, bad decision, or maybe just, you know, an average decision. You know, it's like, well, bro, you could have been doing this. Why'd you spend 2 hours doing that when you could have been doing this? Yeah. That would have given you 10x the result, right? So it's like if you truly could do the best decision day in and day out, you would reach your maximum potential, whatever that could be.
I see myself, like, in retrospect, I'm like, I wish I would spend more time on this, or I wish I did this decision after the fact. But like
Sequencing of decision making is super important.
But I'm saying I'm like, dude, like, so like let's say like yesterday I was like, I should spend more time working on the fund, or I should spend more time building this relationship, or I spend more time doing this. And then, but a lot of times like in the moment or like during the day, I'm making like bad decisions, or I'm not prioritizing the right things. How much of your time do you spend like choosing like how to prioritize, or is that a skill that you develop? Like how can somebody get better at that? Like,
you know what's funny is like now that you're saying that, I've really never thought that. I've never thought like, dang, dude, I should have been doing this. I should have been doing that. Like there will be times where I'm like, dude, that did not work out. I wish I didn't do that. But at the time, I did believe it was the best thing to do. And like the decision-making process was correct. The outcome,
given the information that you had at the time.
Just the outcome wasn't good, right? Because there are clear times where you can just tell. You're like, bro, should I do this or this? And you're like, this is the easy way. I'm lazy. I don't want to. And so you choose the easy way, even though you know it wasn't the best decision. That's never been like me. What has been me is just like always making the best decision, even if it's hard or difficult. And then the consequence or the result may not be what I was hoping for. And that I can live with that. I don't live with regret when it doesn't work out that way. But you know, I do learn from it, and I look back and I'm like, in hindsight, now that I know what I know, I would not have done that. That was stupid. At the time, based on the information I had, it looked great, and you know, I got to live with the decision now.
So I mean, just to kind of like analyze this, it seems like one of your superpowers is making the best decision, even though and not feeling like lazy. Because I think a lot of times, me for myself is like, there's kind of two decisions, but I'm like, I feel like more lazy, or I'm taking the easy road as opposed to the one that I think will give me the maximum value at that point in time. So because there's just things that I know will be like a 10x return, but I don't feel like doing that. I'd rather do the thing that's like a average return, but it'll still move the ball forward.
The safe return. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So back to Patrick Lencioni, when I was at his office, he has a test called the Working Genius. Okay. And one of my traits, my top trait, was the gift of discernment, which is basically your ability to make decisions. So you actually are talking about what it is I do.
Your superpower.
Yeah, it is the gift of discernment. And I was talking to Gary Harper, my business coach, about this. And he's like, honestly, like, yes, discernment is like an ability that can improve over time. He's like, but I also think it's a spiritual gift, because it is in the Bible, the gift of discernment. And like Solomon, who's known as the most wise person to ever walk this earth, he was the richest, the most wise. But if you like really look at it, when he asked for wisdom, he was actually asking for discernment. He was like, God, I'm so young. I don't know how to rule properly. How am I going to be the king and handle the disputes and all these things that the people have? What he was asking for was discernment to make great decisions. And, you know, I think for me, that has been the superpowers, like figuring out what is the best decision given the situation. You know, based on now things have changed. Do I pivot? Do I keep going? Do I double down? Do I cut? You know, and I've made difficult decisions that others would not have made, you know, almost every time. Like
from discernment.
From discernment, just trying to take feelings out of it and just say, look, I understand what's going to come from this decision. I'm going to get pushback. I might lose some people. But in the grand scheme of it, I believe that this is the best decision going forward.
I mean, I think I read in a book one day or like a long time ago, where it says that like basically the job of a CEO or leader is just making great decisions over and over and as quickly as possible.
And that's what I said, right? Like at the end of the day, how do you have a meteoric rise? Well, let's just say you made the very best decision based on the opportunities that you had in front of you. And if you reached your optimal decision 100% of the time, you would hit your maximum potential. Now, we all don't do 100%, but if you're talking about, for example, right, you think about how many decisions are made on a daily basis, okay? So me, you know, I made the decision today to wake up at 5:30. Set my alarm the night before, and when the alarm went off, I had a choice. I could just wake up and...
So, I mean, that's actually a decision right there, whether or not to wake up at that point in time.
100%. And how many people hit snooze? They've already lost.
That's me. So, but I mean, like, I recognize that too, as like because then sometimes when you say decision, it's almost like you're saying like, okay, like it's just like you're a choice between like red or blue. But then this one is whether or not you hit the snooze or not. It's like that's actually a decision.
You made a decision. This is literally the first decision you made, and you lost. And how many people hit snooze? So for me, I do things to make sure I make the right decision. Mm-hmm. For example, my phone is in the bathroom. So it's literally like 50 feet, 30 feet away from me, right? So it's like, dude, I'm not going to go wake up, turn this phone off, and then go back to bed. So I'm up. Okay. Now I have a new decision, you know? Do I want to go read my Bible and pray and do the things that I do every morning, right? The answer has been yes, all of these years. It's no wonder my faith has grown. Okay, now I have another decision. I got to go work out today. I may not feel great. I may not have slept great the last night. Do I feel like amazing every time I work out? No, but I make the decision to just push through it and do it. Then I have a new decision. Okay, great. You know, now I'm going to get ready and go to the office and, you know, all these things. And I was,
When you say like making great decisions, I'm thinking it from like a business perspective, right? Like it's like
these are so everyday things.
But the thing is, like, it's
people
really,
don't do them.
Yeah. But it's really like your entire life, your entire day is actually just small micro decisions that
they're not micro. They're actually far more important than the big business decision. You know how many big business decisions you actually have? Mm-hmm. They're very few.
I mean, that's a good point too, because in my mind, I'm thinking you're making a great decision. I'm just like, the big decisions comes on, like, should I go blue pill, red pill, right? And you think that big one that moves. But then in actuality, it's these hundreds of small decisions or big decisions.
And I can go 100% on those, right? Like, I know for a fact I'm close to 100% on reading my Bible, waking up, working out, doing those things. And when I do get the red or blue pill decision,
the big one,
should I make like I already am so confident in my decision-making ability because I always win. Mm-hmm. I'm always certain because I always, make great decisions and do the things I know are necessary to be successful from a small level.
Yeah.
So when I have to make a big decision, it's like whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly wishy-washy on your decision-making, I might wake up, I might read my Bible, I might work out today, I might follow my diet. What do you think happens when you are faced with a big decision? All of a sudden you're like, oh, man, I don't know, dude. Like, I can't even decide whether I should wake up on time. How am I going to decide the fate of my company? It's no wonder people freaking struggle.
That's so good. I mean, I'm just processing it. I mean, because I feel a lot of small decisions, and I'm thinking like, because for me, I'm bringing to you like all the decisions,
the big decisions you got to make.
Decisions, right? So
yeah, you're like, should I do social like 2 posts a day?
Medium decisions.
Yeah,
right? But a lot of it too is just like, should I work on this or should I work on this, or should I just kind of take a break? And so like there's all these different things where they're constantly competing in my day as far as like making like the correct decision. And sometimes the correct decision is actually to take a break. But a lot of times it's like, don't be lazy and just actually do the work itself.
Well, the way, and this is why I think like I end up more as a personal development guy when it's all said and done. But like the book Atomic Habits talks about this, right? Like you make so many decisions throughout the day that your brain cannot literally like think about them all, right? Yeah. So these are how we develop habits. It's because they are already like whatever. Like you just are going to do it when you're presented with this choice.
Subconsciously without having to like,
you don't have to think about it. You just do it, right? Like if I'm driving and I got to turn left, I'm not even thinking about should I press the left button or not. It's just boom, I press it. And so the more things you can automate, the better. Because, for example, me just waking up, I don't have to think, man, do I want to wake up? Like I just have done it so many times, I just do. And then the gym, it's not even a decision. Literally, I don't even think about whether or not I want to do it. I just literally start walking downstairs and I go just start pumping iron. It's just what I do. And so once the decision's made, that's a habit now. Yeah, and that's the best thing, right? So it goes down to how do you end up where you want to be? You just do the right things every single day. The small things, because if you do the small things well, the big things become easy. Mm-hmm. I learned this in sports. It's like, dude, I saw so many balls, so many ground balls, so many pitches that I can just tell what it's going to do. I could see that ball hit right there. I'm like, oh crap. I don't think about, should I run left? Should I like drop step this much? Should I?
It's like your subconscious is pulling together all the information and is making like a quick decision for you without you even understanding.
Yeah, I'm just like, boom, I'm already off. Okay, boom, there it is. Boom, the moment, it's funny, when I was playing, I would sometimes I'd get the yips.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, the yips are like, dude, when you just can't throw the ball. And it's just, you're super nervous and scared. I've had that many times. The reason that happens is because you actually start to think and make decisions. You field the ball and you're like, oh crap, man, I hope I don't screw up. Okay, so like make sure I pat my glove once. Okay, hand by the ear. All right, just follow through and throw it, hit his chest. That's literally what happens when you have the yips. Whereas when you don't have the yips and you're just freaking playing because you've done it 8 million times, you don't even know how it happened. It's just done.
So how can a person who's like, I guess, any advice for somebody who's like making like it's like the wrong decisions or doesn't have it in their daily life or in their business, how can you turn that guy into Ryan Pineda? You know, like
it takes discipline, dude. First, I mean, like I said, you gotta win the small decisions first. So snooze is a great, like literally that's everyone's first decision of the day. I tell you, if you freaking just put your phone in your bathroom, that way you have to like actually get up and you can't hit snooze.
I'm gonna try that actually. That's a really great idea.
Yeah, like, and it's also gonna help you with radiation, so you don't freaking have it by your head. But like just something like that, knowing that, dude, I used to be like 50-50 of snooze. You know,
like you yourself.
No.
Oh, okay.
Come on, man. No, I don't know what I used to be.
Yeah.
I was a snoozer at one point. I don't remember when.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. But point is, like, if you're 50-50 right now, hey, let's get to 100, dude. I'm not going to snooze anymore. Now I'm creating the right kind of habits and decision
making.
Yeah, that's going to make you more confident in the other decisions you make.
I mean, that's really good. You got me kind of like rethinking my life right now. As far as because I feel like I feel like I'm pretty good as far as my decision making. Maybe let's say like a 80% or like a 70%, but there's still a small percentage where I know I'm losing. And I think like if I were to just switch those to get those to like 100, I think like my capacity or my output would also be like a lot higher than it is currently.
Yeah, like what you're really concerned about, and this is what high level guys are concerned about, is the big decisions of like what to change. Like, hey, should I actually, I don't know, spend 2 hours a day making content, right?
Yeah.
Like you're talking about big changes in decision making where you're like, I need real wisdom and discernment to know whether or not this is going to be worth it, big picture, right? And those things do need to happen. Don't get me wrong. But what everyone always fails to decide on is what I just talked about, the everyday little thing. And that's why when I said, you're like, how does this happen? I'm like, because of all the little decisions I make, all the micro decisions I've made every day the last 10 years. That's why making big decisions, I have confidence and faith and good discernment.
But that's also how you're able to like fit in so much output in such a small window. Because,
that too.
Because I mean, like it's like, let's say like you're doing 100, that compound self. I'm doing like 20 or like 70, 80, 100, 50. And it's like my decisions in the same time period of work, I'm not getting as much output because I'm not making all the exact same like correct decisions.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing too, right? You could put in 100 hours doing something, but if it was the wrong things you were doing, even if I only did the right thing for 10 hours, I'm going to win. So like that's where discernment comes into play. Because like, for example, what if you go out and you film, I don't know, 50 podcasts, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you film them the completely wrong way. You filmed them without audio. You didn't turn it on. Like you literally just wasted all the time. Right? And I could have just filmed 5 and I did it right, and I'm going to win. And so I do think there's an element of people do a lot of work the wrong way or the wrong kind of work.
I mean, it's definitely something that I think I'm working on, like personally. But that's why also having just like perspective, kind of hearing what you have to say, kind of gives me feedback into my loop where I'm like, okay, like it looks like I've been spending too much time in this wrong direction. Let's readjust or recorrect. And like the more often I think I can have those conversations, sometimes with you, sometimes with a partner, sometimes with an employee or another peer, it just really help me to kind of consistently like go towards the right directions over and over. Okay,
let's talk about, and we got to go, but let's talk about a meteoric rise. So the perfect meteoric rise, assuming you made 100% correct decision, is like literally straight up, right? Now, let's just say like point A to point B, the goal would be to get there in the fastest amount of time. Let's just say in your lifetime, your potential was point B up here.
You make perfect decisions.
You make perfect decisions. You are Jesus, right? Not going to happen. But here's what happens. You start here, you make, some good decisions, and then, start making some bad decisions. And guess what? The longer you stay on a bad path, you drift over here, right? So now you're like even further away from point B than you were originally, even though you're moving and you're doing stuff. So then you spend all this time course correcting and whatever else, and then you just realize your life's over because you only had this much time, right? You could have went there, but you wasted it, and now you only ended up here, right? Or you just ended up so far over on the deep end that you never even got close. You ended up actually further away from the goal than when you started. And so like the objective of life is like what you're talking about. If you know that this is your potential up here, then how do you consistently just keep going towards it and like course correct as soon as you catch yourself and then get as close as possible?
That's really deep. Deep. Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on the podcast today. If people want to reach out to you or find more about you, where can they do so?
Hey, just go follow me, Ryan Pineda, anywhere. And yeah, man, appreciate you having me on.
Same, thank you.
Yep.